Hey everyone, I'm Joe, and today it's time for me to do my March reading wrap-up. But before I get around to that, I just have a quick word to say about the fact that this following Saturday the 7th of April, I will be taking part in a live show. The live show will be held on Rachel's channel. Rachel is known as Connie on BookTube. If you don't know already, and if you haven't been subscribed for very long, then I talk about Rachel at least once a month, if not several times a month, mainly because she's kind of awesome and she keeps making me read really interesting books by talking about them really rather enthusiastically over on her channel. Anyway, the live show will be about the Hugo nominations, which have just been announced a few days ago. It will be at 4 PM English time, so it will be slightly earlier in the day for America and obviously later of the night for more eastern countries and Europe. And it should be really interesting because it is, of course, myself, Rachel, Paul and Bree. The four of us will be going to the Hugos themselves in San Jose this year as well. So this will be a nice chance for us to have an interesting conversation and actually see each other before we physically finally meet each other in person this year. So this should be really fun and really interesting to do. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll put all the appropriate links in the description box below, of course. Anyway, with that said, I will get on to talking about the books, of which there are 12 in total, by 8 authors and in 4 different genres. So it's an interesting mixture of ideas and writing styles. And the first of those books is The Neutronium Alchemist by Peter F. Hamilton. Now this is the second book in a science fiction series. It is classed as space opera, and indeed space opera is what Peter F. Hamilton is extremely well known for, and indeed is what is all I've mainly read of his. Now I own nearly every book he's wrote, just above my head there. I have the third book, which I will be starting pretty much as soon as I finish filming this video. And indeed I will be doing a separate review of this trilogy later on in the month once I've read that third book. So I'm not going to say too much about this one now, other than to say it goes by the same principle that Peter F. Hamilton normally writes by, which is a large cast of characters, a large amount of locations, a massive plot with great stakes at play, mad ideas, technology that is so advanced that it seems almost magical at times, because of course that is a well-known saying, and it's mad at times, but it's really interesting, and Hamilton knows how to do space opera of this kind of scale. It's just really well written, frankly. The second book is an ebook, so I'll put a picture up on the screen now, and that is Deep Wizardry by Diane. Now this is the second book in the Young Wizards series. There are currently 10 books, unless I'm very much mistaken, and I am absolutely loving this series to pieces. The main two characters is a young girl called Nita and a young boy called Kit. In the first book they discover they are able to learn and become wizards, and they have to encounter a big bad guy of some kind. That's what I'm going to say about the first book, because I don't want to give away spoilers. This second book, they are being developed as characters, as well as this world of wizardry is being explored and opened up really greatly. In this one, it is very aquatic based, to do with events in the ocean, as there is a rather curious shark character that you get to know and really like in the course of the book. It sounds strange having a shark as a main character, but it actually does work in this circumstance. And this is fantasy in the vague style of Harry Potter, I suppose you could you'd have to reference, although this was written a long time before Harry Potter. But this is urban fantasy. It's more real than Harry Potter is, as such. It feels more like every day. And frankly, I enjoy this far more than Harry Potter. I mean, that's not hard because I'm not actually a fan of Harry Potter. This I really enjoyed, and I just think that I wish I'd read this series a long time ago when I was younger. it might have been, it probably still will be, a favourite of mine in years to come. The third book is Ubik by Philip K. Dick. Now, this is, unsurprisingly for Philip K. Dick, a science fiction book which is both mad and strange, with ideas that really make you scratch your head in puzzlement, because at times you're not sure what it is that you're actually reading about, or you have absolutely no idea what Philip K. Dick is trying to say. And indeed, after I finished reading this book, initially for the first day or two, I was very doubtful of this book. I actually thought it was kind of rubbish, frankly. And then, once I'd thought about it for a few days, I realised a few certain things about it that, whilst I thought they were kind of weird and useful at the time, they actually make a lot more sense after you had a little bit of think about them. And this book is much better than I thought. The plot of it is based around a guy called Glenn Runster. He's the corporate head of this giant company, and he dies. His employees get together for his wake, or the top employees anyway, and the problem is they find out that Glenn Runster isn't exactly dead. Well, he might be, but he's kind of not as well. Somebody is dead, but they're not sure who it is. Nobody's exactly sure who's dead and who's not dead, because the definition of life and death in this book is curious, let's say. I don't want to say too much because it's bizarre and mad, and it's sort of a book that where you want to go in without knowing too much so you can figure out your own ideas, but it's got some curious ideas and it does do it really well, and you do have to think about it afterwards though for it to make sense, because initially at the time of reading, as I said, I thought it was terrible, and then I realised actually it's quite a bit better than I thought. Next up, I read Poirot Investigates by Agatha Christie. Now, this is a Poirot book. It is one of the fairly early books. It is only the third Poirot book, and it is a short story collection. And frankly, yeah, I didn't like it. I personally think Poirot doesn't work in a short story format. It's too short for Poirot to get going on a case and for him to do the thing that in other books is really fun and enjoyable to read about. But in short story format, he can't develop in time. He's just rushed from very brief point to very brief point with nothing in between. And I don't know, just short stories about Poirot, who is a Belgian detective and police constable over in Belgium. He's now retired from that and he's come over to England and he's become a private detective and solving various crimes. He's a brilliant character, but in short story format, I don't think he works, personally. I prefer full-length novels. I wish there will be one more in this video. The next book that I read is also an ebook, so there'll be another picture here, and that is Gluttony by Matt Wallace. This is the 6th book in the Simulacra series, of which there will be 7 in total. The 7th one is actually only going to be released in a few weeks' time, so that means I can finally find out how this novella series ends. It is based around a catering company with a very unusual contract, because rather than catering for normal events, they have a very specific contract with the US government, and in particular one department, the demonic diplomacy department. So they are catering for demons at various functions, so they're making really strange and in some cases morally dubious food. And it has a rather strange and frankly mad cast of characters. They at first don't appear to work together very well, but actually they do work together well in a strange way. They're really fun, they're really fast paced, and just everything about these novellas is just really fun and enjoyable, and they're just a blast to read, frankly, from the first one to this 6th one, this finally the 7th next month. I will probably do some sort of Simulacra overview video once I've read the 7th one, so I'm not going to say too much now, but they are really fun and easy to read, and also very fast because each one is not even 200 pages, so they are quick to read as well, and just great. Next I read another ebook, so the cover will be up on screen now, and that is High Wizardry by Diane. this is the third book in the Young Wizard series, and like I've previously said, it features the same two main characters, and it is fantasy, probably urban fantasy. And in this one, Nita's younger sister finds out that Nita is a wizard, and basically she wants to be what Nita is because she sees what Nita is able to do, and she likes the look of this, and she thinks it's something that she should be able to do. So basically she wants to become a wizard, and this is about her journey. This introduces the new main character, and then Nita and Kit are trying to stop her from basically wrecking various things, let's say. And it's really interesting because this one, they go and travel quite a lot actually. The travel is about as far as you can go. It's kind of off the planet, literally. And it's strange at first, but it does make sense. And the characters are once again really well developed and written. The plot is really fun and enjoyable, and there is some serious meaning behind what the characters do. I really cannot recommend this book, and indeed the series as a whole, enough, because they are just really fun and just so great overall. I mean, again, I'm really looking forward to getting to further books. I will probably be reading 2 of these or even 3 of these per month, so get used to me talking about these for the next few months. Next up, I read The Penultimate Truth by Philip K. Dick, and yes, this is yet another masterwork by him in this collection. Now, this book is based around the concept of people are essentially in a large amount of population of Earth are living in underground sort of bomb shelters, whilst World War III is raging above ground. Or at least that's what they think is happening. Actually, that's not the case. They are being forced to live underground in these bunkers, whilst on the surface, a sort of new form of humanity as such, this sort of pompous, up itself humanity is living this idyllic life, essentially, and they're using the underground masses of humanity to build the very things they need, but it's always on a knife edge because they cannot allow the bunkers of enormous amounts of people to find out that World War III is actually not going on, that the surface of the earth is indeed very livable and indeed extremely nice. In fact, it's all nice and green, and it's been developed extremely well because it's been it's got machines going over and things, and it's been expanded beyond what we've got now. It's got some interesting ideas, and it's very political in terms of what it's trying to say. Various political messages. It's trying to sort of delve into the various government issues and things. But I didn't really like this one. I didn't quite understand the point of it, and I still don't, frankly. Even though I've had a good think about it, I still don't quite understand what the book was trying to say. And overall, I was disappointed by it. With Philip K. Dick, this is kind of the normal for me. I think it is with some people, a lot of other people as well. Either you really like the book, or you just don't understand it, and as a result, don't really enjoy it. This is one that I didn't understand, and therefore didn't overly enjoy. But I will reread it in quite a few years' time, and I might get it then, I might not. We'll see in time. Next up, I read The Bourne Identity by Robert Ludlum, and yes, this is the book that the film starring Matt Damon is based on. Now, the Bourne trilogy starring Matt Damon, the first 3 films, I saw all 3 of those movies in the cinema over 10 years ago now, in the early 2000s I believe it was, and I absolutely loved that trilogy. And I've had this book, and indeed the Bourne trilogy, sitting on my shelf for a number of years now, unread, and now finally got around to it. If you are hoping and expecting the film in book form, you're not really going to get it as such. Yes, it's obviously based on this because there are names are generally the same. Treadstone is still mentioned, but it's in a very drastically different manner. the idea of this amnesiac assassin, yes, that's still there, but the reason he's an assassin and the way he became an assassin is not even vaguely similar, and it just uses the basic principles of this book to make the film. As a result, I liked this book. I'm not going to say I didn't, but the problem is I like the film so much. I think that the trilogy of the Bourne, of Bourne, is so brilliant that the book, being second now, is going to be hard done by to actually live up to it, and it kind of doesn't manage it really for me. I mean, it's obviously sort of like a spy espionage sort of thriller with the main character called Jason Bourne. He's found floating in the ocean, being shot multiple times, fished out by a fishing boat, and he recovers in a very different way than he does in the film, I might add. Although he still meets an interesting fisherman and a doctor, that's what I'm going to say. And he then wants to find out who he is and what he's doing. But events go in a very different way from the movie. But it's still worth reading. If you like the film of it, then I think this is actually worth reading, because it's curious to see how they've evolved this into the film, because the film is obviously very different because it's a visual medium, not written. So that needs to be fast and instant, and it needs to be a continuous thing. This, for instance, his recovery when he's fished out of the ocean is taking place over a month, not just over a few days on the boat. This is much slower paced, but it's still interesting. Just doesn't quite live up to my expectations going from the movie, but that's kind of unavoidable, frankly. I then read The Big Four by Agatha Christie. This is another Hercule Poirot book, and indeed is the last I'm going to be reading for the time being, because this is actually my mum's book, and I've been borrowing them off her for the last few months, but she doesn't actually have any more now that I haven't read. This is the last of them. So that's it for the time being, although I will try and get hold of them in some other way. The library almost certainly probably has these. The library doesn't have that many books. My library system doesn't. It's not very good. But you probably have Agatha Christie. And as I said earlier, Poirot is a former Belgian detective who is now retired from that, lives over in England and solves crimes. In this one, this didn't work for me, frankly, because in this, Agatha Christie is trying to write Hercule Poirot as though he's kind of a mix between, James Bond and sort of an action type figure, where he's coming across the Big Four, which are these Big Four sort of international super criminals, and he's sort of going in disguise and trying to do things that Doyle would have done with Sherlock Holmes, and it doesn't work, frankly, for Poirot. It just seems strange. This was written as a series of short stories that then were interconnected and brought together for this book, and frankly, you can tell it shows, because I didn't like this really at all. This was actually my least favourite of all the Poirot books I've read to date, sadly. Next up, I read The Simulacra by Philip K. Dick, and yes, this is another one of the Yellow Spine SF Masterworks. In this one, and it will be the last Philip K. Dick I'm talking about in this video, in this one is, again, political with a rather strange twist. The President of the United States is not actually a human, he's a simulacra. I don't entirely know how you pronounce that word. I've been trying to mentally pronounce it the whole time I was reading the book and failing, because it's a very strange word. I've never actually encountered it before. And he or she, the President, is essentially a android of sorts, where it is controlled by a group of people. The mass population doesn't actually know that the President is essentially a robot, essentially. But because it keeps getting changed, and indeed they get different companies to build the different androids, essentially, of the President, and obviously they are paid quite a lot of money and have to sign, very particular papers and things to make sure they don't talk, and they would be jailed and for life if they talked about it. So it's fairly safe there. This has very interesting political ideas in it, if you can understand them. I didn't understand most of the ideas in this book, and it's strange because there's a psychiatrist called Dr. Superb who's involved in this in some way. I'm not going to go into details because frankly I would have difficulty because I didn't understand it, frankly. At the end of the book I was basically scratching my head thinking, well, what just happened? I honestly don't know what I've just read with this book, frankly, which doesn't make it easy to talk about, and indeed I'm not going to say too much more, and frankly it makes it very hard to like. Frankly I didn't like it because of that reason. Yeah, again, this is one of the books where I didn't understand it, therefore I didn't like it of his. Yeah, but he did write a lot of books, so we'll see in time which ones I like and dislike. The next book that I read is an ebook, so there'll be a picture up on screen, and that is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the first novella in a series. The second and third novellas, I believe, are coming out extremely soon. I think the second one might even already be out. If it's not, it's out within weeks, I believe. And indeed, the first one, this one, All Systems Red, has just been nominated in the Hugo Awards. So that should be interesting as well. And obviously something that we're going to talk about this following Saturday, as I said at the start of the video. In All Systems Red, it is about, as the series name might suggest, a murder bot, which is essentially an android, so it's a very human looking robot. It's designed to be essentially like a combat robot, essentially a murder bot, as is commonly called. But this particular murder bot, although it's perfectly good at murdering people if needs be, it much prefers to download its favourite television shows on essentially like futuristic versions of Netflix and Amazon, and store them up and basically just watch its favourite program, just binge watch stuff, which we all like to do from time to time. And this is not what murder bots usually do, and this murder bot is slightly different because his ability to be ordered about, because normally they have like an inhibitor in them basically which can force them to do things, and if they don't they can essentially be shut down. His isn't working in the way it should do, so he's a bit of a different character as a result than what murder bots should be, and he's working for a group of people at the moment that have also got different ideas from the normal. And also the ending as well, I'm very curious how the next novella will turn out because it ends in a very interesting way. I can't say anything about it because it is only a novella, so it's only short, so I won't give too much away, but it's well written, really amusing in places, and also has some really interesting ideas and some really well written sections. Well, the whole book is well written, frankly. The characters are developed in an interesting way, and they just work together because you've got this character who's not human but he's very close to it, playing up against obviously actual humans. It's an interesting mix and one that I think works extremely well. And finally, I read Blackout by Connie Willis. This is the third book in the Oxford Time Travellers series. I have already read the previous two books, and indeed this one is not related directly to the previous two books. The first one and the second one are standalones set within the same world. This book, however, is actually the first of a two-parter, along with All Clear, which I have on the shelf behind me, which I will be reading in April. And it's essentially one story that has been split in half. And it's quite one big long story as well. The Oxford Time Travellers principle is that time travel is a thing in this world, but governments and things were interested in it originally, but when they realised you can't alter the past or gain any real benefit from it, you can only observe, because if you try to do anything, time will fix itself, then governments basically sort of discounted it and nobody really cares about it other than universities and such, which obviously find it fascinating because you can go back in time and actually observe these massive events. This one, as you might suggest, guess from the name, Blackout and then obviously All Clear, is to do with World War II. There are three characters. They go back to World War II England in 1940, and they are observing certain events, but the events they are observing are not the ones they want to, because things start going wrong and they're not sure why. Normally time travel works in a fairly predictable way, but in this it's not working in that way, and none of them are sure why, and they're all getting a bit worried and quite scared that something has gone on drastically. And they're like, as far as they are aware, you can't change the future by going into the past and changing events. Time won't let you. You'll kind of alter the play around of events. But they fear that they might have done it, but they're not sure. It's very curious, and I did like it, but I didn't love it, however, because it does take a long time to get where it's going, and frankly, it is the first part of one longer story. It's literally one book that's been split in half, because of otherwise it would be one absolutely enormous, like, monstrosity of a book. As a result, I can't say I loved it because it's almost too slow going. It drags in parts, and it's just like, well, can you sort of do something, and actually start with a story rather than doing these other events? And it does get going eventually, but it takes an awfully long time. You've got to think that despite the width of this book, it is only half of a book as such, and half of the story. So it's interesting to think about, and I am eager to read the second half of the book though, because it does get quite interesting at the end with some interesting little twists and such. So I'm very happy to get around to this. Anyway, with that said, that is it for all of the books I've read in March. I've read an interesting mixture in total. If you've read any of these or would like to, then please leave a comment in the comment section below, and we can have a conversation. All my social media links can be found in the description box below, as well as the links to the live show this following Saturday. I hope you can join us, because it should be really, really good, because, well, Rachel's there, I'm there, Paul's there, and Bree's there. Rachel's one of my favourite people, so, it should be really good. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching. I'll see you another day. Bye for now.